This is Barbara Kolm again at FreedomFest, and we are here at the booth of Principled Business, and I have the privilege to talk with Alexander McCobin, who is well known in Europe for being the founder of the Students for Liberty. But Alexander moved from a non-profit to profit, from profit to non-profit again, moving in the world of ideas. Alexander, thank you for taking the time, and welcome to our little podcast here.
Well, Barbara, thank you for inviting me and for all the incredible work that you're doing for liberty around the world. I so deeply appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, we've been doing same things for many, many, many years. But let's get started with business. I was listening to one of your panels today when you had true capitalists speaking up about capitalism and why we need to promote capitalism. So capitalism for capitalists. How would you describe that to our audience and why capitalism matters at all?
Well, capitalism matters because it's not only a moral system based on the free and voluntary exchange of goods and services between individuals, but it's the key driver for human prosperity over the last 200 years and will be for the next 200, because it's all about people finding ways to serve each other, create value that didn't exist before, and advance humanity as a result of that. But the challenge is that not enough capitalists, the people who are starting or running businesses, understand the economic system in which they operate or advocate for it or even serve as the best representatives of it. What we really need is to get more capitalists to be the best advocates, representatives, and collaborators in capitalism to not only preserve this system, but advance it forward. And that's what we're doing with both Principled Business and Liberty Ventures. Principled Business being the educational arm to help business leaders, future business leaders, and the public understand the principles of capitalism, especially in practice, and support it. And Liberty Ventures being a network of values-aligned business leaders to work with one another in scaling their businesses to scale their impact in the world, whether it's through investing, partnerships, or creating new companies outright.
So what you do is actually translating the principles of the Austrian school into a business method by inviting people to collaborate and divide labor.
Exactly. And it's the case that capitalism is not just an abstract theory, obviously. It's something that we implement in practice. And there's a difference between being really good at business and understanding capitalism. And what we're doing is trying to bridge that gap to help more business leaders understand capitalism, help more people who understand capitalism go into business and be successful, to connect those two together.
Well, that is a great job. So for how long have you been doing that now?
Well, we started Liberty Ventures and Principled Business about a year and a half ago, so we're still pretty new at this. But this is an evolution of what I was doing before. After I started and ran Students for Liberty, I was invited to run an organization called Conscious Capitalism, started by John Mackey, the founder of Whole Foods, and a number of other great business leaders. And that was a place where I realized that if we're going to get capitalists to advance capitalism, we need to be very explicit about it, we need to teach those principles, and we need to provide a platform for them to do business with each other, because that's what they care about most, and rightly so. If they are going to be in business, they need to dedicate themselves to that business. But we also want them to understand how supporting capitalism will support their business.
Well, that is important. And how do we translate it for the next generation? Because you have been previously working with the next generation at Students for Liberty. Now you have the grown-ups Students for Liberties, or actually the entrepreneurs. So how do you translate it in your day-to-day job? What do you do?
So there are three big things we're doing for the next generation. The first is telling the stories of capitalists who are making the world a better place to counter the dominant narrative that all capitalists are evil, greedy, destroying the world, exactly. But after providing that inspiration, the second thing we want to do is provide a deeper explanation of the principles of capitalism for them. And so I've just launched a speakers program to get principled business leaders onto college campuses, talking about how they're actually making the world a better place, what those principles of capitalism are, to take the next step. But then the third and critical thing to do is actually help young people go into business to be principal business leaders themselves. We're running our first accelerator program that has a lot of young people in it, testing out ideas to start their own businesses.
Excellent.
We're investing in early stage startups that are run by values-aligned entrepreneurs and creating many more opportunities like events to bring people together, a fellowship program we're going to launch soon to encourage more young people to be capitalists advancing capitalism.
Well, that is super cool. So, I mean, I know you live out of a suitcase, more or less.
That's right.
So you travel a lot, but where are the businesses based?
So they're all over the world.
Okay.
We have a high density of businesses in the United States, obviously, because there's a lot of activity there. But we've invested in a company in India. We look at companies in Latin America and Europe, and in the accelerator program, we also have companies in Africa and Asia. And so there are lots of we want to support business leaders and young people all over the world with the platform that we're creating.
That is cool. And how is the platform financed?
A variety of ways. Liberty Ventures is supported through a membership fee that business leaders are paying in order to support what we do. We also are through Principal Business take donations in order to support the educational side of what we're doing.
So you're a 501c3?
We have a 501c3 and a for-profit because the only distinction is a tax status and a business model. And so we're tapping into different ways to spread these ideas for different purposes behind what we're doing, but all under the unifying purpose of getting more capitalists to advance capitalism.
So one question, what made you a libertarian, a freedom-loving individual, somebody who embraces capitalism?
So I always believed in these ideas. I knew that from a very young age, but I started to realize what it was when that's right, we've got...
Yeah, we have to wait a second and cut it out.
Need to let the forklift get through.
Yeah.
But
as long as he's not making us...
That's what happens in an exhibit hall at FreedomFest.
Exactly. So, coming back, so what made you a believer in capitalism and libertarian ideas and free markets?
From a very young age, I think I innately believed in these ideas, but it was when my dad gave me a copy of Atlas Shrugged for my 14th birthday that I figured out the term for what I was and really started to delve into this. It took me a month to read over that summer, but by the time I finished, I thought this is what I've always believed put into words, and I was hooked.
Well, and once one is hooked, you never get off the hook.
That's right.
But you studied at...
So I did my undergrad at the University of Pennsylvania, and then thought I was going to become a philosophy professor, and so went to grad school at Georgetown.
Yeah.
Before realizing that I had a lot more fun and more impact personally in organizing and developing businesses, and that led me to drop out with my master's and go focus on Students for Liberty.
Well, exactly, and you're a true leader and a true entrepreneur, an intellectual entrepreneur, actually.
I do what I can, and I just try to create value where I think I'm going to do the most good, and I realized at a certain point that for me wasn't going to be in academia.
Well, what books would you recommend to to students on the one hand, but also to people who need to learn more about our ideas, about freedom? I mean, not everybody wants to start with Adam Smith or with Hayek, but there is plenty of other books that are easy to read and where you can be hooked as well.
So I actually think Adam Smith and F.A. Hayek are great places to start, or Ayn Rand, but some more contemporary books that I think are engaging for not only young people but anyone today would be Johan Norberg's new book, The Capitalist Manifesto, that I think is a fantastic explanation of the power of capitalism as a force for good over the last 20 years. But then also Conscious Capitalism by John Mackey and Raj Sisodia, which not only provides a defense of capitalism, but starts to explain how businesses can live up to the potential of the system in which they operate that we're carrying on with Liberty Ventures and Principal Business.
And what would you recommend for those who are already advanced a little, but who are running a business, who run their own enterprise, who are in the field of entrepreneurship? What would you recommend to those who want to learn more about Austrianomics, more about our ways of thinking?
Well, for them, I would actually recommend listening to the Liberty Ventures podcast, where every week we release an interview with a successful investor, executive, or entrepreneur where we talk about both the economic system in which we operate here, why capitalism is great, and then how to be successful in capitalism as a capitalist, and connecting those two concepts with each other.
Well, that is perfect. Well, thank you for giving us all those recommendations, and we will, of course, show the link to the respective websites. Is there anything else that you would recommend us to do?
Well, my recommendation to anyone listening is that if you believe in the cause of liberty, if you believe in capitalism, there are many great ways to advance it. Certainly in academia or think tanks or politics, but it's too often overlooked that business is an incredible way for people who support capitalism to advance it, because you are the embodiment of the system itself. That you are the person that people think represents capitalism. You have the opportunity to live it out. So I would encourage anyone watching who cares about liberty to at least consider being an entrepreneur or going and joining a business led by a business leader who cares about capitalism, and leverage that position and opportunity to advance the ideas that we care about.
Well, that is very interesting that you mentioned that, because what we see in Europe these days is there is great entrepreneurs, great business leaders, and they all struggle with their day-to-day life, and then they say, oh, we don't have time to either not only support, this is not the thing, but gather with like-minded people or with people who could kind of help our ideas and promote our ideas. So that is a real issue in Europe. Do you see that in the US as well?
It's a universal challenge that we face right now. And that's why we are a global network. And I think these ideas do translate across countries, but it's going to be a lot of work.
Well, thank you very much. We will definitely expand this, and looking forward to having you back, and maybe at the roadshow as a speaker if your travels allow.
Anything I can do to support, Barbara.
Well, thank you very much, Alexander. It has been a pleasure.
Pleasure is all mine, really.